It is time for a new episode of Becoming a Master Painter. And as you can guess, this episode will be about trees. Now, it's not going to be all about trees. I have to share a little bit of a plot twist too in this episode. But for that, we have to get into the video. As you can see, this episode is starting a little bit different than usually, because normally you would see a drawing here of the subject I'm going to paint, and you would see some paint, and of course some brushes, and then I would start painting and, well, talk you through the lesson I'm following and what I'm learning. But this is going to be a bit different because, as I said in the previous episode, I'm struggling with the camera being in the way of me progressing in the academy. But before I'm continuing, I'm gonna share some good news with you. Well, it's part of this episode anyway. You may remember this one, and this one is from the last episode. Now, between these two paintings, there's a huge gap. And that was a bit of a problem I faced in the academy, that going from the fundamentals to the landscapes, there wasn't something in between. Now, Andrew promised he would make some beginner lessons, and he has started with them. So I want to show you some of the work I did from those beginner landscape lessons, and it starts with some trees. Now, there's not only going to be trees, he's going to focus on skies and other elements too, but it starts with trees, and that is great because going from this painting to this isn't a huge step if you go from this to this. So that is a great improvement in the academy. So he has some great trees. I painted this pine tree, and there's a gum tree, which is very nice. And then slightly perhaps more complicated is this willow tree with a little bit of a landscape, and I added some elements myself. And these lessons are a great bridge between going from the fundamentals to the landscape painting. So here we're learning already all kinds of details about landscape painting without having very complex landscapes to paint. These are quite simple landscapes with some mountains, some background, and mainly focusing on one subject, the trees. So that is a great improvement in the academy. Now, perhaps you also notice something else, how the paintings are looking different, more vibrant, more depth, and especially if I put this one next to it, you see that this one has more vibrant, strong colors, really deep tones. And if I pick the first painting I made, you can see probably a huge difference between the two. I had to make another change. Now, normally I use these Sonja matte acrylic paints, and I really do like them. But on recommendation, also Andrew encouraged me to try oil paints. But I didn't want to go there, as I said in the beginning of this whole series I'm making, because of all the toxic elements involved. But after some advice from other academy members, which is really helpful, and some more research, I noticed that paints themselves, the oil paints, aren't necessarily toxic at all. It's the things you add to it. So I changed my paints and I went to oil paints, the Sennelier oil paints. But I'm not using all the extras, the solvents and the mediums, and especially Andrew uses Liquid Original, but that is toxic and I don't want that in my studio. So I've got some alternatives for it. And here is one medium. This is green for all, non-toxic. Or very easily, I just paint with my paints pure. And at the later stages, I may add some safflower oil, just regular safflower oil, there's nothing toxic about that, and just paint and still get some luminosity and some more depth in my painting if needed. So that is a huge switch, and that for me, that improved the paintings right away, which was surprising to me because I thought I was doing pretty well with these paints, but when switching, and if I look at this now, yes, that was a good change. So that's the second thing I changed. So those are 3 changes I wanted to share with you. First of all, the change in the academy, that there is now a bridge between the gap between these complicated landscapes, but taking a step in between, me changing paints so that I can get the luminosity and the depth, and also the blending is way easier with this. The disadvantage is still that you have to leave it to dry for a while until the next layer, but that's a day or two, and okay. If I work on more paintings at once, then that works out fine. And the third change, of course, is, as you can see here, the format of the video is a little bit different since it got in the way of my progress. But this way I can still share some of the progress I'm making, but in a slightly different way. Now, for the next episode, I'm probably going to do something different again, but I'm going to end this episode with just a little bit of painting. No, not this painting. Where is it? It's gone. Yes, there it is. While I was painting this, I filmed a little bit on the easier parts where I didn't have to come close up myself. So we're gonna end with that. And that will just end this episode too. And I'll see you in the next episode.